Contrary to popular belief, deer and all other creatures in Valheim do not have a sense of smell. For whatever reason, there is a common myth spread in the community and is the first of 17 facts I will debunk in today's video. Rather than smell, creatures have two senses they use to detect players, starting with their sense of sight. Most creatures can detect a player in front of them within 30 meters with these exceptions, including our deer, which has a sight of 25. Further, creatures do not have great peripheral vision and can only see in a cone of about 90 degrees in front of them. Second, creatures can use their ears to detect you, but this time with a range of 20 meters, except for those we saw before. Many things you do in Valheim generate noise of various magnitude, with chopping trees and mining being the noisiest, while sneaking makes zero noise altogether. Considering all that, the best way to hunt a deer is to use your sneak ability to reduce your noise and approach them from behind to avoid detection from their sight. You would be wise to keep these facts in mind for when we debunk some combat myths later in the video. Funny enough, hunting deer leads us to our second myth, which relates to the trajectory of arrows. Many people believe that wind direction impacts an arrow's flight path, which is simply not true. Arrows will shoot straighter the longer you draw down on them, and further, will fire faster and consume less stamina the higher your bow's skill, but the wind direction will never influence the trajectory of the arrow. Gravity, on the other hand, will draw the arrow down. The further the shot, the higher it is recommended you aim to hit your target. While wind has no impact on ranged warfare, that is not the case when sailing, of which there is prominent misconception about wind direction and intensity I must put to bed. In fact, there is effectively no optimal angle to be sailing with respect to the wind. You either have the full effect of the wind's benefit with the wind symbol lit up, or no benefit when the wind symbol is grayed out. Without the wind, your best bet is to draw down your sails and start rowing. That said, wind does have various levels of intensity which can depend on the day. While this is not shown on the sailing visual aid, strong wind can be heard and is visualized by the white gust lines across your screen on the windiest of days. You will sail faster when the intensity is stronger, but the exact angle in which your boat faces will not increase your speed. Granted, you're not sailing completely against the wind, denoted by a grayed out wind symbol in the sailing interface as discussed earlier. Of course, should you want the wind direction while sailing to be forever in your favor, you can pop Motor's Forsaken Power to guarantee the wind direction for a 5-minute duration. Further, with the addition of the Asksvin's Cloak's wind run effect, many people thought it would work with Motor's power, just like I had. Unfortunately, that is not the case. Hopefully, the developers consider changing this in the future. And while we're on the topic of wind and weather, it's important that all Valheim players know that weather is not random. Even I, up until a couple months ago, assumed the weather in the game changed randomly, but I have since learned the truth behind how it is determined. For instance, have you ever noticed that day 2 in the meadows is always misty? That's because weather in Valheim is on a schedule that will be the exact same each time you play. However, have you ever noticed that when you cross over from one biome to another that the weather immediately changes? That's because while weather is on a schedule, the schedule is different for each biome. If it's raining in the meadows in one location, it will be raining in all other meadows across the entire world as well. If you want to see the schedule for yourself, check out the address on screen or find a link in this video's description. The next 5 confused facts are likely the most important on this list as they are focused on combat, and misunderstanding them can easily lead to your own demise. First, new players likely expect that they would need to physically avoid an enemy's attack for a successful dodge. However, while watching an experienced player, you would notice that when they dodge, it appears they get hit, but for some reason they don't take damage. Dodging in Valheim gives you iframes, which may be familiar to you if having played Dark Souls or other similar games. Or invincibility frames are a mechanic that provide complete immunity while in your dodge animation. For this reason, if hit while dodging, you take 0 damage despite the creature appearing to make contact. Next time in combat, try dodging into your enemy's attack to close distance for a quick and easy counterattack coming out of your dodge. Alternatively, if dodging is not your thing, a well-timed block can result in a parry, staggering a creature and allowing you to deal bonus damage. Surprisingly, the parry bonus you receive from a successful parry does not work as most people think. If inspecting your weapon or shield, you will see a parry bonus multiplier ranging from 0 for tower shields to as high as 6 times with the flesh rippers. Most people believe that this bonus corresponds to a multiplier to your damage dealt, but in truth, it has a very different meaning. In reality, the parry bonus is a multiplier to your block armor, which determines how much damage absorption your character has, rather than functioning to increase your damage. The damage dealt following a parry is in fact fixed at 2 times the damage regardless of the weapon you are using. Similar to the parry, many players fail to fully understand the backstab bonus. Contrary to what the name suggests, hitting an enemy from behind is not required to grant the bonus damage. In truth, additional damage is applied by hitting a creature from any direction as long as they are not aware of your presence. Awareness of a creature is denoted by a symbol above their heads and takes 3 forms. First, the lack of symbol represents an unaware status. Second, the yellow indicates some awareness but uncertainty of the player's location, where the creature will begin to search for you. And thirdly, red means they are aware of you with your location known and therefore will be hostile towards the player. As long as the creature is not in the red symbol awareness state, the first hit against them will grant you the backstab bonus corresponding to your weapon type. If you want to avoid making a creature aware of you, remember what we discussed about creature's sight and hearing previously in the first tip. Before moving on to the next combat fact, you must keep in mind that there is a caveat in the backstab bonus in that it has a 5-minute cooldown. If you lose their aggression and hit the same unaware creature again, if 5 minutes have not passed, you will not receive the bonus a second time. Like with the backstab bonus, there is a common misunderstanding where people believe you do less damage when hitting multiple enemies at once. This one is interesting because it's both true and false at the same time. For many weapon classes, when you hit multiple targets simultaneously, you do reduce damage to them individually, but what most people fail to realize is that you do more damage overall. As an example, if you hit 2 enemies with a club, your damage will split but deal 2/3 of the damage to each of them based on this formula, resulting in a higher total of 133%. A few weapons are an exception to this rule and do their full damage regardless of how many creatures they are hitting. The exceptions are as follows: one-handed swords and two-handed axes primary attacks, and the secondary attacks of two-handed clubs and polearms. While it's important to know how to deal damage, you also want to understand how to prevent it. Unfortunately, many people misunderstand damage resistance and how it could be hurting how you play the game. In short, multiple sources of resistance and weakness do not stack, nor do they cancel each other out. Rather, the strongest source of resistance will override all weakness. This can best be explained with the following 2 examples. First, any player familiar with the swamp, you will likely want poison resistance to assist you in your journey, of which there are 2 main sources. One, from the poison resistance mead, which grants the status of very resistant to poison, providing 75% reduction, and secondly, the root mass yielding a resistance status of 25% reduced damage. Combining these resistances does not increase your resistance to poison at all, but rather, the 75% reduction overrides the 25%, giving the player only the 75% reduction to poison. Similarly, let's say you wear the weakness to fire providing root harness into the planes, giving you 25% more damage to fire. However, you counter that by consuming barley wine, providing 25% resistance to fire damage. Rather than these cancelling out, the resistance trumps the weakness, yielding resistance to fire. Keep this in mind on your next adventure. Despite what many think, your armor will not protect you when taking a fall. Unlike most damage sources in Valheim, fall damage is of the pure variety. Unlike most damage sources, pure cannot be mitigated by armor. For this reason, no matter how kitted you are when falling from a height of 5 meters, you will take 6.25 damage, increasing by that amount for every additional meter of height you fall from. Fortunately, what many players do not realize is that there is a cap on fall damage that can be taken from a single fall. Occurring at a height of approximately 20 meters, the character will receive 100 damage. A fall from any height higher than that will yield no additional damage beyond the max. Therefore, if your health exceeds 100, you can survive a fall from any height. Contrary to popular belief, the Huntsman bow is unique and has an excellent attribute that no other bow possesses. Despite there being no indication of this stat in any bow's description, each one has a hidden stat called attack and hit noise. If you remember from earlier, noise can be created by doing a variety of things with a radius of noise creation. For bows, this radius is represented as an attack and hit noise, which for all bows except for the Huntsman is 15 meters for attack and 8 for hit. The Huntsman, on the contrary, is a mere 4 meters for each stat, making this weapon ideal for a stealthy player. Even though Valheim was updated to change its behavior in an update long ago, many players still believe terraforming the Earth with their tools reduces the performance of the game. In truth, terraforming to form your base actually saves the game resources and can even improve the performance of your game. Game performance is often most impacted by creating new instances in the form of creatures, build pieces, and items. Excavating and digging, on the other hand, contributes 0 of these. For this reason, it is recommended to take advantage of terrain manipulation as much as you can in your builds to maximize performance. While building, most players believe they are limited in the area to build based on the radius of the workbench. While this is true, what many players miss is that they can increase their bench radius. Starting at 20 meters, the buildable radius for a workbench can be increased by 4 meters for each upgrade built near the workbench. With 5 currently available, the build radius for a workbench can be as high as 36 meters. Likewise, the forge build radius can also be increased with its upgrade, but in this case only 3 meters per upgrade to a maximum of 38 meters. What is lesser known and commonly misunderstood about these radiuses is that they also prevent creature spawn within them. While many people believe spawn prevention functions just like in Minecraft by lighting up an area, it's not the light, but the specific build piece itself which results in spawn suppression. In Valheim, spawning is ceased by building what are called base structures, of which I have included the full list on screen. Base structures prevent spawn within a radius of 20 meters except for the forge and workbench, whose radius can be increased as just mentioned. Further, items dropped within the radius of base structures will never despawn. Without one of these structures, items dropped will disappear after an hour of in-game time has passed. If you want to prevent their despawn, simply lay down a workbench, campfire, or any other of their base structures listed previously. And if you learned something in this video, you will definitely learn something here with 200 plus more Valheim tips for your viewing pleasure.